everybody. Let me start to say that faith has been the main ingredient of the Middle East, perhaps since the exodus from Egypt, almost 4,000 years ago. Although most of us claim Abrahamic link or line of religion, we practice our religion, understand it in different ways. And very unfortunate that the way we practice and understand religion caused huge conflict in this very region where the religions have come from, the Arab world areas, the Middle East, Palestine, Egypt, Iraq, this area. I believe that coexistence is possible and achievement. However, it has been politicized over centuries, which results in more conflict, more demonization, not just between different religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, but actually within religions itself. I mean, as a Muslim myself, I can talk about my religion freely. As a Muslim, we have, as you know, the divisions between Sunni and Shia, Alawite, and so on. And I believe in Christianity to some form, but not as acute in the Middle East. I believe political and intellectual dialogue is becoming essential to avoid the continued politicization of the religion, as a religion essentially here to bring peace to our souls and our hearts. And that's what it should be. I mean, recently the Arab world have reached the boiling point, and we were presented to what is called Arab Spring. Despite the difficulty we had in the Arab Spring, a new discourse is coming out. People are talking openly. And people are talking about peace, not much talk about war as it used to be. Much, much less than it was, say, 4 or 5 years ago. Nonetheless, there is another form of violence coming on. As you know, the civil war in Syria claimed almost 200,000 lives and destroyed the infrastructure of the country. In Egypt, there have been several thousands were killed, and many thousands are incarcerated in prisons. In these trials we see on televisions every day of 2 presidents, President Mubarak and President Morsi. It is a tragedy because I personally thought the Arab Spring should have moved the way Eastern Europe have done 25 years ago after the fall of Berlin Wall, by moving into a genuine, some form of liberal democracy, and where there is a public participation, where the word culture diplomacy can apply and can fill such a huge vacuum and gap. In our part of the world, particularly, religious leaders often talked about blasphemy, which is used as a weapon of fear if someone tries to open a free discussion or free debate. Here, I'm not talking about Europe, which have gone through huge social and religious change over the last several centuries. I'm thinking of the part I come from, the Middle East, the Arab world, where the Arab Spring hopes were great, and still there is a great hope, but I believe the real blasphemy is one of hate, or instigating hate in the name of God. When I read the Facebook, which I do every day now, almost little addict, which I didn't read about 3 months ago, I find most comments in Arabic contain a religious reference for a bit of Quran or a bit of sayings of Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad, which is really show that political Islam is still alive in some form or another. And in many occasions, debating the relationship between liberal democracy and the political Islam, I find that political Islam starts mutating a bit by accepting the principles of democracy as we know it in the West. Sometimes I wonder, or a bit cynic, and think, is this a political opportunism, short-term strategy to get through the ballot box than in order to enforce their concept of political Islam? The Arab Spring, which I'm focusing on, has gone into severe turbulence. As having constitution by itself is not enough. If there's no intention, the rulers in the Arab world particularly applies their own rules irrespective of what's written in the constitution. Like we all seen the trial of President Morsi, for example, being in a metal cage, and then the metal cage was enclosed in glass cage to muffle his voice. So they, at the end of the day, they're very inventive to go around the system. Democracy is not difficult to apply in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, the first 50 years of the last century, we had democracy in Egypt, and actually the Egyptian constitution, which was based on the Belgium constitution in 1923, was adopted by Kemal Atatürk in Turkey. And the constitution came to abrupt end in 1952 after the officers' coup against King Farouk. And was supposed to have a better constitution, but we've had what we've had that ended with the Arab Spring, human rights abuses, imprisonments, virtual destruction of all institutions. The Arab Spring over the last 2 years have moved into great disappointment and tragedy, and many thousands being killed. The killings and destruction, particularly of the civil war in Syria, have dwarfed the often discussed Palestinian and Jewish problems. If we put it in figure, to be clear, Egypt lost 70,000 people over the last 60 years in wars with Israel. And Israel lost about 25,000 people, and Palestinians lost about 7,000, and Syrians lost about 3,000. Now Syrians lost about 200,000 fighting each other. I think we need a new approach to bridge this vacuum and gap. And the multilateralism will only come through harmonization of state institutions. And the religion need to be harmonized too. It is a state institution, and it's not any different. Indeed, it's the most important single factor in what's happening now. And it affects the mindset of many of us in the Middle East. To achieve objective change it needs some form of reformation, which is a word a lot of people hate in the Middle East if it's mentioned. And it has been blocked by regimes and Islamists alike, by the way. It's not just Islamists because they work hand in hand. So am I on time?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. What I feel that we need a new face, new change, young people to talk. We need opening in the world. We don't need political or religious discourse. It's not easy to stop, but I think it can be dealt with in a peaceful way by further opening in society and letting people to speak out, discuss freely about what's happening. Another big problem in the Middle East is interference between Arab countries into one another. For example, making Muslim Brotherhood a terrorist organization is, in my view, and I do not support Islamist or political Islam at all, is not going to help. It's going to be counterproductive, will push him under the ground, and probably will cause a lot of resentment in a large section in society. Unfortunately, the media is not fair. The media is a mouthpiece of certain regimes and certain sectors. And you know, the media in the Middle East is owned by the people who are attached to regimes or owned by the state itself. So there's no free media in the sense what we see in the West. And I appear in the media lots of times, and I know their sources, and I know their agendas, and that is frightening me a lot. But I don't have any choice not to appear there because I would have no other place, no platform to speak on, but I keep my independence nonetheless all the time. I think I will stop here, and perhaps I will take questions, might be easier. Thank you very much.